Australian single malt? Let's see what this is about. Welcome to another Amongst the Whiskey review. I am your host, Nick Anderson, and today we are going to be discussing the Morris Australian single malt whiskey. This is a Rutherglen distilled whiskey out of Victoria. Full disclosure, this is a bottle that the brand had sent to me for free, right in accordance with what I put into my editorial policy on the website. That in no way affects the rating that I may give this whiskey at the end. So I'm excited to dive into this one. Let's pour up a glass and see what Morris Australian single malt whiskey is all about. Okay, right away I get like a nougat, plum forward kind of experience on the nose. I mean, there's an instant decadent sweetness to this. It's kind of potent, oily. It reminds me of an Irish whiskey quite a bit, actually. Behind some of those red berries, that plum, raspberry, I find this very creamy characteristic, kind of like flan. Digging a little deeper, I get a sweet honey butter note. Long inhales show off a classic coffee cake kind of vibe. I think it's time for a sip. Okay, that is a great single malt. Little bit of smokiness on the back end. The initial flavor profile is very buttered popcorn. I almost also find like a grilled pita bread kind of characteristic on the palate. Give this another taste. Whoa, okay. There's like a savory characteristic to this, almost like a tomato sauce, like a pizza sauce. Behind that, a little bit of mozzarella, maybe even basil swings in there. I'm getting distinct pizza vibes out of this whiskey. There's also this distinctly European characteristic to it. So adding those things together, I feel like I'm eating pizza somewhere in Europe as I sip this whiskey. Come on. That is so good. There's like a King's Hawaiian roll. Beautiful sweetness there. Layer in some oat milk, maybe even some buttermilk frosting. That is an interesting flavor profile right there. Okay, nosing after a sip, it's a distinctly different whiskey. There's a little bit of saltiness, a little bit of earthiness. I almost get a mossy vibe a little bit. There definitely feels like there's some local terroir going on with this, because I have not had a whiskey that tastes exactly like this before. There are some strong parallels to things that I know and love already. One being Irish whiskey, another being that buttery characteristic. That buttery characteristic isn't quite like Clynelish 14, for example, but it is its own distinct, sweet character that I think lets this shine in the glass for sure. Okay, nosing late in the glass, I get this feeling of being surrounded by old stonework. So I envision myself on the cobblestone streets of London as I nose this glass. Very, very interesting whiskey. I'm having a really good time exploring this one. Okay. Yum. The finish is on the shorter end, but that is made up for by the fact that this has a lovely mouth coating of butterscotch and a good linger of milk chocolate behind that. It's balanced, it's bubbly, it's oily, it's viscous. It's ultimately a really good whiskey. I find that I wish it had a little more rich character. I wish it screamed something at me, but it's a very delicate, approachable sip. I think a lot of people will find this to be very drinkable. There's not a lot to dislike about it. People that are scared of peat will certainly not have a problem with this whiskey. Australian single malt is very much its own thing. and I think it is well worth drinking. Because of that, I'm going to give Morris Australian Single Malt a 4 out of 5. Really good. I want one of these on my shelf. Cheers. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, that's a good whiskey. So I do find that this is maybe a little more akin to an Irish whiskey than a Scotch single malt. That being said, the opportunity to pair this with something like a margarita pizza is too strong not to try. I might have to do that tonight. Cheers, my friends. Oh yeah, that last sip. It's all of that. King's Hawaiian roll, a little bit of savoriness on the back end. That tomato characteristic is still just lingering back behind me a little bit. I can't help but smile. It's a delicious whiskey. And I almost forgot. Empty glass, nosing notes. Always. I can't skip out on that. The empty glass smells like a seaside. It smells like the ocean is nearby, but some distance away. It's not potently salty, briny, like the sea is right there. A sea breeze is wafting right past your nose. It's almost like you're further inland, maybe on like a grassy hill. But that grassy hill is accessible to the sea breeze. There's still that sea breeze coming across, more faint than if you were at the beach, per se. Now, is this a screaming, rare single malt profile? No. It is not going to knock out the likes of Black Bamor or anything like that, but it is a wonderful introduction to an Australian single malt that I am certainly glad to have sipped. So, like I said, that is a 4 out of 5 on my rating scale. That means this is a bottle that I think is really good, and I want one on my shelf. So this one is going to transfer from my to-do shelf into the whiskey study to be enjoyed with company from here on out. That said, that's going to do it for today. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Keep it amongst the whiskey, baby.